Bonjour, welcome back to French for Middle Schoolers. In this video, we're going to be covering irregular ER verbs. If you watched the verb conjugation video, I mentioned that there were some ER verbs that were not conjugated regularly. So in this video, we'll learn about those verbs. So watch closely as I conjugate the verb manger, which means to eat. Je mange, tu manges, elle mange, nous mangeons, vous mangez, elle mange. For the je, tu, elle, vous, ils, and elles form, the verb manger is conjugated like a regular ER verb, but for the new form, the ending is EONS. These kind of verbs are called GER verbs because they end with those letters. The only rule you have to remember is that the ending for the new form is EONS rather than ONS. Now pay attention as I conjugate the verb commencer, which means to start. Je commence, tu commences, elle commence, nous commençons, vous commencez, elle commence. Similar to the conjugation for manger, all the subjects have normal ER conjugations except for the new form. For the new form, there is an accent called a cd on the C. These kind of verbs are called CER verbs, and their only rule is that the new form has a cd on the last letter C. Next, watch as I conjugate préférer, which means to prefer. Je préfère, tu préfères, elle préfère, nous préférons, vous préférez, elle préfère. This verb has a normal ER conjugation for the nous and vous form, but it has the opposite accent on the second E for the je, tu, elle, ils, and elles form. These verbs do not have a specific name, but are irregular because of the different accent. Other verbs that have a different accent on the second E of the je, tu, elle, and ils, and elles form are espérer, which means to hope, and répéter, which means to repeat. Now pay attention as I conjugate the verb acheter, which means to buy. J'achète, tu achètes, elle achète, nous achetons, vous achetez, elles achètent. This verb is similar to préférer because the nous and vous forms are regular. However, for the je, tu, elle, ils, and elles forms, there is an accent on the first E. Again, these verbs do not have a particular name, but other similar verbs are amener, which means to lead, emmener, which means to bring, lever, which means to lift, and promener, which means to walk. Next, watch as I conjugate the verb appeler, which means to call. J'appelle, tu appelles, elle appelle, nous appelons, vous appelez, elles appellent. Like the last two verbs, the nous and vous form of appeler are regular. The je, tu, elle, and ils, and elles form have two L's, so for these subjects the consonant was doubled. Other such verbs are appeler, which means to spell, jeter, which means to throw, and rappeler, which means to call back. And finally, pay attention as I conjugate the verb nettoyer, which means to clean. Je nettoie, tu nettoies, elle nettoie, nous nettoyons, vous nettoyez, elles nettoient. Again, the conjugation for this verb is regular only for the nous and vous form. For the other forms, you have to change the Y to an I. These verbs are called YER verbs, and they all follow this rule. So that's it for this video. There are definitely a lot of rules to learn, but if you take your time to get familiar with all the different conjugations, you will be able to remember them much better. Au revoir.